So picture this scenario. It's the 7th round and you realize you've only drafted 2 wide receivers. You have all your other spots filled, but you think to yourself, oh crap, I completely ignored the wide receiver position. What do I do? Well, I got good news. There's plenty of wide receivers out there in the mid to late rounds that are available that I am extremely high on. So here we go. I'm going to give you the 5 wide receivers that I will be targeting in the mid to late rounds. Keep in mind, this is PPR. Once again, this is PPR, so just keep that in mind. But here we go.
Now he's going to take a deep shot. Sutton in the end zone. And Courtland Sutton, with a flag down, makes the catch for a touchdown.
So number 5 is Courtland Sutton. Now, I know he hasn't done too well I think it was last year, maybe the year before, but for whatever reason, I'm not going to give up on him. And he's going in about the 10th round anyways, so he's more for myself. He'd be more of a depth type of wide receiver, and if he breaks out, then it's a nice little surprise. And I also know that, Marvin Mims is going to be, challenging him for catches, but we've only had a small sample size with Mims, and I know the quarterback, situation is a little murky, but Sutton should get a lot of targets, and that's why I'm comfortable drafting him around the 10th round, maybe 9th round if he's available.
Really help.
Dobbs on first and goal over the middle, touchdown!
Well, and they still they only had 10 players on the field.
But Michael Wilson's.
So Michael Wilson, I don't even think he's getting drafted, so you could probably get him in the last round of your draft. And I know the hype is on Marvin Harrison Jr., and I get it. I understand why. However, Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to get a lot of double teams, and Michael Wilson, last year he did a lot with the poor quarterback play that they had in Arizona, and I think Kyler Murray is just going to help him with his numbers, and he's going to be a very solid wide receiver. Maybe a 3rd wide receiver or even a fringe flex, but if anything, you can just keep him on your bench, and if he doesn't pan out, the worst case scenario is you can drop him. Best case scenario, you got a solid wide receiver to the very last round or in free agency.
Comfortable range of Joey Slye. Howell. Sideline, it is caught! It's Samuel, and they get in the field goal range.
So I know that the Bills situation is a little murky, but the wide receiver that I think is going to be the most consistent is Curtis Samuel. I would think of maybe putting up production kind of like Cole Beasley. Not saying he's going to be a slot receiver, just saying he'll probably get you like 7 catches for 70 yards, maybe 80 yards. And if you can get Curtis Samuel to average 10 to 15 points for you every single week and possibly throw in a touchdown every now and then, that's solid. Especially if you're going to draft him in maybe like the 8th or 9th round and you get that type of production. I mean, why wouldn't you want that as your flex or as a bye week replacement? Like I just think he is going to come out of all 3 Bills wide receivers as the most consistent. Not the biggest boom or bust, but the most consistent.
From the 43 of Indianapolis, Lamar loads up for Marquise Brown. Makes it look easy for...
There's a lot of question marks in Kansas City. You have Rashee Rice not knowing if he's going to get suspended. If so, for how long? I know Xavier Worthy, everyone's very high on him, and I understand why. Thanks a lot, Bills. Way to trade that pick, the Chiefs more weapons. But anyways, I would say that Hollywood Brown is going to surprise a lot of people. I think with Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback, Patrick Mahomes can make anybody look really good. Granted, his wide receivers last year weren't good at all. They were horrible. But if you have a talent like Hollywood Brown and you hook him up with Patrick Mahomes, I think that is the perfect place for Hollywood Brown right now to really excel. I feel like he's going to surprise a lot of people who maybe, if you're not a Chiefs fan or if you're not a Hollywood Brown fan, he's going to surprise a lot of people. I think he's going to put up really good numbers this year. He's going in like the 8th round, 9th round. And I mean, you can't beat that value. And it's one of those situations, once again, where if he doesn't do well, I mean, it was only like an 8th or 9th round pick. It's not the end of the world.
Lawrence fires. That's caught on the run. Christian Kirk inside the 20. He goes, and Christian Kirk takes the ball all the way to about the 1 yard line. They're going to spot it.
So the last person I want to talk about is Christian Kirk from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Last year, before he got hurt, he was putting up really good numbers, consistent double digits, and that's what I look for. I look for consistency when it comes to those mid to late round picks at wide receiver. I mean, I'm not expecting boom or bust. I'm not expecting them to go off. If they do, great. But if they can average those 10 to 15 points for me that I want at flex or as a bi-weekly replacement, I'm going to target those guys. And Christian Kirk is maybe just a little bit above that, I would say. But for my value, getting him in the 7th round would be perfect, especially as your flex option. Maybe even he could develop into your second wide receiver, you know, if injuries happen. You never know. But anyways, those are 5 wide receivers that I plan on targeting in the mid to late rounds in my fantasy football drafts. Once again, I always say, if this pans out, you guys took my advice and it works, you're welcome. And if I strike out on all of these guys and you take my advice, I'm sorry.